What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here at TD Garden. The Celtics are now a 500 team for just the second time this season. They beat the Clippers 121-118. I should say they escaped, because they really did escape in this one after James Harden just caught fire down the stretch and almost had a game-tying attempt that looked pretty good from my vantage point on press row. So Celtics come away with a win here. This is a Clippers team that has struggled this season. I believe they're 4-9 now. They've been without Kawhi Leonard. They've been without Bradley Beal, who's done for the year. But I don't really even look at games like that anymore. I think when I started covering the team, I was like, okay, this team's shorthanded, so this is an easy win. This team has all their stars. It's going to be hard. But the more you're around this league, the more basketball you watch. You don't have to be a reporter to notice this, but teams find ways to win with or without their best players, and so any game on the schedule has the potential to be really challenging. And this one did as well. The Celtics led by as many as 24. That lead evaporated. They were down to, that lead had cut down to as little as 3, but they ultimately pull away, made enough big-time plays down the stretch. Jaylen Brown in the fourth quarter had 13 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 steals. He played the entire period, and I think he's a little under the weather. He seemed so at the podium, so he's battling something, but still he was able to give them a good effort. He finishes with 33 points in this one. He got a lot from the backcourt. I'll talk more about that. But big picture, you're now 500 for just the second time this season. They started the season 3-3, and then they lost a couple of games there, and now it's been kind of a climb to be back in that position. And they have the potential to be a better than 500 team very soon here, because they're facing the Nets the next 2 games, and this is a Nets team that has been among the league's worst so far this year. So the ship could be turning a little bit as far as the record goes, and the record's not everything, but they're in a good position here to start putting together some wins. They're coming off a 3-game rest days here, which has been really good. I thought early on it was clear that Jaylen had a little bit more pep in his step than usual. Guys played heavier minutes than they have been. Derrick and Jaylen both played 38 minutes in this one. All of the starters played at least 33 minutes, which is indicative of guys coming off a couple days of rest, which has not been the case early on. They started the year playing 13 games in 22 nights, and even I was tired just from writing and talking about it, so I can't imagine how the players felt. But I think ultimately there was a lot to like in this one, and the biggest thing that stood out to me, and I'm sure it stood out to all of you at home, is that Derrick White and Payton Pritchard are back as far as the shot goes. Derrick was 4 of 8 from 3, and that's following a game where he was 3 of 6 from 3, so he's now shooting 50% from beyond the arc in his last 2 games. And Payton Pritchard had his best 3-point shooting performance of the year, and he was 8 of 13 from 3. And so he was 5 of 10 the last game. He's really trending upward as well. So this team shot 41% from 3, and I know a lot of people, they want to see less 3-point attempts. They feel like, okay, this team settles too much. There have been some games this year where they set some records as far as misses go. But at the end of the day, for those 2 guys, and I'm not speaking on the whole group here, but I'm speaking on Derrick White and Payton Pritchard, those 2 guys, their bread and butter is 3-point shooting, and it's what's enabled them to be the scorers that they have been in the NBA, and it was always going to come around. And so it was inevitable. I asked Joe about a post-game.
Joe, in the last 2 games, Payton and Derrick are both now shooting really well from 3. I think you've maintained all season that was just, they were just missing easy looks. How much does it change for you guys now that those shots are going in? Does it feel like it opens things up for other players? And did it feel just kind of inevitable that it was coming and now it's like we're all just seeing it?
Yeah, it was definitely inevitable just because of who they are as players and how hard they work. And, I think it also just changes the way that teams have to defend us in pick and roll. And so that's a correlation to the restricted area layups that we got, is because those guys are playing better. They're up in pick and roll, and we're getting behind on the 2-on-1, and then we're making seam reads either for a kick out or for a layup there. So there's a correlation to how well they're playing, the pick and roll coverages, and the type of shots that we're getting. So, but it's inevitable. They work too hard, and they're too good of players. They'll go up, they'll go down, but at the end of the day, they'll make plays, and we just got to execute as a team.
But now that they have, you can see what this team offensively can look like, because it opens things up for everybody else. It doesn't mean that everybody took advantage of that today. They missed a lot of bunnies. I think it was 12 shots in the restricted area. Neemias Queta was 7 of 16 from the field, which for him is a pretty bad shooting performance, but he got to the spots that he wants. Jaylen missed more around the rim today than I think he has in any game this season. But part of why those looks were there and those looks were available is because Derrick White and Payton Pritchard were lethal from the outside. And why that's important is because, one, obviously those threes go on the scoring board, and so you need to score baskets to win basketball games, but it just opens things up for everybody else, and I think you saw that tonight. And again, for those of you that have been watching the show or have watched me on the Garden Report or just know my views in general around the sport, it was always going to turn, but when was it going to turn? That was the question. And I think the last game it became clear, even maybe a little bit before that for Derrick, he started playing with a little more confidence. But they were both 50% from three last game, and tonight they're both 50% or better. And I think they're going to go on a little bit of a stretch here because at the end of the day, there's going to be highs and lows of the season, but the numbers are going to average out to be around their usual numbers. So those two guys have turned a corner. Sam Hauser, not so much yet. He only played 7 minutes in this game. He was 0-3 from 3. He's been on a pretty abysmal shooting stretch here for the last couple of weeks. And he's in a tougher spot because he's only getting a few attempts per night. He's not able to get in a rhythm the way that, Derrick can get to the line or Payton's, getting, pulling up for twos first and then getting threes off. So he has a smaller margin of error, and it's probably going to take him a little bit longer to snap out of it. But you're seeing now that on paper, this never should have been the worst three-point shooting team in the league. And for the first couple weeks of the season, they were near the bottom in three-point rate as far as makes. And it created a situation where, like, now you're rethinking the offensive system if you're a fan. You're not if you're Joe Mazzulla, because he knew this was going to come around. So really encouraging to see that come around, and also to see what that opens up for other players, in particular Neemias Queta and Jaylen Brown, who got a lot of good looks around the basket. That just didn't go tonight. Like, Jaylen did not have an efficient game. Queta did not have an efficient game. I don't think it was anything that the Clippers were doing defensively. Like, I think they just missed some layups, and Jaylen was pretty down on himself afterwards as well. So great to see. Derrick White almost had a triple-double again in this one. He had 20 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. Payton had 30 points in this game. I asked him about a post-game because I've been asking him after every game, like every game that he has a good scoring game, like, do you now feel good about your offense? Because he has been pretty down on his shot and just in general, I feel like he's been a little disappointed with his offensive production.
You've hesitated to say that you've been really happy with any of your offensive games. I think I've asked you about this year. Did you feel like tonight put together a full offensive game, or not yet?
How many assists? 2?
2.
Not yet. Not yet then. Good shooting, 3-point shooting.
Did anything feel different with your shot, or is it just like what you've been waiting for all
a little bit actually. I think at the beginning of the year I was like, I feel like I consider myself a good shooter, and you're always searching to how to be better at shooting, right? And sometimes I can overcomplicate my form and trying to overcorrect everything, and then I got in the habit of doing that the first 10 games of overthinking every step, how I want my form to look perfectly. Now I've kind of the last 2 games I've kind of just said F it, I'm gonna just shoot it. One motion, just let it fly, and just don't worry about the form. All the work should carry it. So that's kind of been my mindset, and should continue with that.
The other thing that I'll mention, in addition to the backcourt beginning to produce at the rate that I expected them to all season long, is that despite Jaylen Brown having a difficult shooting game, he impacted everything tonight. I thought this was one of the best defensive games that he's played this year. He had 13 rebounds. I think he had 2 steals in the fourth quarter. This was his best rebounding game of the season. And in general, Jaylen has a lot on his plate right now. He's talked about how, he understands how difficult it is to push the pace now that he's shouldering so much of the load. He's getting double teamed. This was a heavy offensive load for him tonight, and yet he's doing a lot on the boards. I thought from the moment this game started, you could see he really wanted to win this one, and he looked pretty rested. And he's, I think endurance is something that he's still figuring out. He's still coming off of, knee surgery this summer and a hamstring tweak in preseason, so it hasn't been perfectly smooth sailing. But you're seeing now what he can do when he's not having to guard the opposing team's best player, and that's a segue to my next positive takeaway here. But he's able to kind of impact the game in all different ways. And early on this season, I thought that rebounding was one of his biggest weaknesses, and obviously this team really struggled on the glass, and that was a problem, and it was something that he called out a lot after games. I remember after that Pistons game in Detroit, he was like, we have to be better on the glass. We have to rebound better. It's a problem. And then I was looking at him, and I was like, he's averaging below his season average or career averages in boards. He averaged more rebounds last year than this year. So I'm noticing an uptick in that. And I asked Joe about a post game, and Joe said, And
then Jaylen had 13 rebounds tonight. I think that's his high for the season. 2 steals in the fourth quarter. What did you see, in addition to the scoring, but what did you see from him in this game?
Yeah, he had 2 great days of practice this week, and just making conscious effort to be a well-rounded player. It's a really a compliment to a guy that can get his shot at any point in time to rest on the defensive end. But he does the opposite, and like you said, I thought he went on a run there in the fourth quarter that kind of got the lead to where it was. But the 2 steals in the fourth quarter and his ability to rebound, just playing both ends of the ball, and that's how he's leading for us. He's going to continue to do it.
So I think he doesn't want to just be a scorer. He's their leading scorer. He's going to be their leading scorer all season long. but he wants to do a little bit of everything. And I think tonight you saw that, that even though he missed some bunnies and he missed some shots that I think in general he'll make, overall, he impacted the game very positively in this one, and that's reflected in his plus-minus as well tonight. That's point number 3. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this basketball season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. There are some players that have been going absolutely crazy. You look at a Luka Doncic, you look at a Steph Curry, who has just been playing out of his mind, Kevin Durant, Austin Reeves, all these guys, you can pick more on them. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Play PrizePicks to get action on basketball in more than 40-plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. On PrizePicks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose Flex Play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payout, go for the power play. No matter your play, PrizePicks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. The other thing I want to mention is tonight it's Jordan, but so far this season, the number one thing I've been enjoying the most watching is this emergence of these young guys that can guard. Because at the end of the day, Jaylen Brown's 29. He's had a knee surgery. He is shouldering a lot of responsibilities across the board. I don't want to live in a world where the future of the Celtics point of attack defense is Jaylen Brown. Like, he has been playing in this league for 10 years. It's typically a task that is reserved for younger guys who are not shouldering a lot of other responsibilities. And obviously he has that in his bag. And we've seen the way that he can guard players in the most critical moments. We'll never forget what he did to Luka Doncic in the 2024 championship series. That being said, that is not sustainable for 82 games for him to take on those assignments. And over the last week and a half here, you've seen Jordan Walsh. These are the assignments that he's had. He's had Paolo Banchero, Tyrese Maxey, Jaren Jackson Jr., and then tonight, James Harden. That's 4 All-Stars. That's 4 guys that, Jaren Jackson is not the most prolific scorer, but that's 4 really good scorers, in particular the other 3, in particular Maxey and Harden, are just 2 of the craftiest, most high-scoring, difficult-to-guard players in the league that can draw fouls and get to the line and take threes, and they have such a litany of offensive options, and he did a really good job on all of them. And with Harden, it's not going to reflect on the box score as well as it did actually being here, because he did get hot down the stretch, and he made that costly foul where he fouled Harden at the 3-point line, and that was a big mistake, and Joe brought that up a couple times post-game, but overall, Jordan is guarding at a level that I don't know that I knew he was capable of, because I didn't really see signs of it as much as I expected to with Summer League and in the G League. And now it's something's clicked, and he is guarding incredibly, and he's guarding all different kinds of players, and he is honestly pretty disciplined. I thought he's had a really bad whistle so far, and he's just kind of going with the punches, and he was frustrated at some of the calls, and part of it is that he's Jordan Walsh, and that's James Harden, and whenever the official is not sure, Jordan's going to get the call, and Harden's going to get to the line. He was 14 of 15 from the line tonight. But as he gets older in this league, he's going to start to get better better calls as well. I remember when I started watching Avery Bradley, who was one of my favorite players growing up, and it was at the beginning, I was like, okay, that wasn't a foul, but it was Avery Bradley. Who knew who that was? And then he established himself as an all-defensive level player, and he started getting the kind of calls that defensive players want. Covering Jrue Holiday these last 2 years, I saw him get away with so much stuff, and credit to him. He's a Hall of Famer. He's considered to be one of the greatest defenders of this generation. But right now, Jordan is not getting the calls, nearly the calls that Jrue was able to get away with. So I was impressed by what he's been able to do these past few weeks. He's going to continue to get the best defensive assignments. And Ugo didn't play in this one, and I don't think that's a huge deal. Ugo is going to have his moments for sure. And at practice this week, Joe Mazzulla talked about how he hasn't really thought about sending Ugo to Maine because he thinks Ugo can impact winning right now. And so there are going to be games, and there have been games already, where my show has discussed Ugo's defense and the way that he's a part of the future and how he's going to be a part of the next great Celtics team and defend opposing team stars. And he's done that already in stretches. Jalen Brunson, Cade Cunningham, he's taken on those assignments. Josh Minot has had those moments as well. So I don't really care who it is, but they have 3 prospects of young guys, Josh who's 22, Jordan who's 21, and Ugo who's 19, who have the ability to be elite defenders. And tonight, it was Jordan that got the opportunity. It's going to continue to kind of bounce around. Jordan started the last 2 games now. Prior to that, it was Josh, I think the 9 games before that. So we'll continue to see who it is. I don't know if there's any reason, rhyme or reason behind why Ugo was a DNP tonight. I thought Josh played a little bit less energetically than he was earlier in the year, and I don't know if that's an injury or confidence or whatever else, but Jordan right now is kind of crushing it, and it's been a lot of fun to watch as somebody. He started his career in Boston the same time I did. I literally started covering the Celtics a week after he was drafted. My first ever article was about him. So it's been pretty cool to see the way that things have kind of come together for him over these past few weeks, and the versatility of the guys that he's defended has been awesome. So it almost was spoiled here. If James Harden hits that last three, they go to overtime. I don't know what we're talking about right now, but he was ultimately able to come away with enough stops, and through the first 3 quarters, he was just awesome, especially the first half. Awesome defensively, and he's going to have to figure out the fouling thing, but to be honest with you, James Harden is one of the greatest foul baiters of this generation. I say that with respect and credit. And so even, Jordan can be frustrated, but this is kind of what happens when you guard him, and he's elite at that skill. And when I say foul baiting, it's he's actually drawing fouls a lot of the times too. I thought tonight he got some questionable calls, but that's his thing, that's his skill. The last thing that I'll mention in this one, we talked about Derrick White and Payton Pritchard. We talked about Jaylen Brown's kind of all-around game and how I think he's starting to do a little bit of everything, despite the scoring load still being on him, and he took by far the most shots in this one and scored the most points. You're seeing now other guys are able to kind of create their own offense, and Derrick and Payton hitting threes is going to open a lot up for Jaylen. The last thing I wanted to mention is Neemias Queta, who didn't have the best offensive game. He had 14 points on 7 of 16 shooting, and I only say that because I think he could have had 25 points in this one. He had some really good looks, some bunnies that he missed. That being said, he had a big offensive rebound put back on a Jaylen Brown miss that was critical down the stretch. And defensively, I'm so impressed by what Queta has been able to do so far this season. I'll be honest, I did not see this coming. I thought that he was going to be a good starting center. Thought that he was going to average, a double-double or near that. So, the stats, I'm not so shocked by. If anything, I thought that his stats were going to be a little bit flashier. But as far as what he's actually able to do defensively, I didn't think he was going to be able to move the way that he has. He's guarding on the perimeter. He's much more disciplined than he has been in the past. And I feel like you're starting to watch the beginning of a really good center's career come together. And there's a lot of room for improvement still. It's, he's still, this is the first year that he's really getting this opportunity, and he's learning and he's growing and he's making mistakes and playing through them. But entering tonight, if you look at the top 5 individual defensive ratings of in the NBA, 4 of them are Thunder players, and one of them is Neemias Queta, and he has had one of the best net ratings in the league so far. Him and Jordan Walsh have been one of the best 2-man duos as far as plus minus in the league across the entire NBA. Here we're talking about a lot of good contending basketball teams, and so. There were some moments tonight, if you didn't watch the game, I encourage people to watch, but maybe I'll post some of these on Twitter, but there were some moments tonight where he was able to guard out on the perimeter and then close out on a corner shooter and just move around and recover. I was blown away. And so from the beginning of the year, he was my biggest X factor. He was the number one guy I was just not sure what we were going to get from. Everything else, Jaylen, Derrick, Payton, I knew what we were going to get. I didn't expect the slump, but I knew what we were going to get. Jordan and Ugo, I didn't know. I honestly, I've been positively impressed by them. Maybe some of the vets, I thought we were going to get more out of Chris Boucher, maybe Xavier Tillman. So that's kind of all balanced out. But Queta has been the most positive surprise. And I know for those of you, I know we have a big Portuguese following. For those of you that have been around Queta for long and have followed his career, you guys have been saying this is coming. But for the rest of us, we're seeing it now. And again, not a perfect game for him, not a perfect player yet. And nobody's a perfect player, but a lot of great flashes. And he was big in this one. And there's a reason why his plus minus continues to be really positive, because this team's defense is just a lot better when he's on the floor. So that's it for now. As always, thank you for watching. You got Boston. We did hear from Joe Mazzulla, Jaylen Brown, Derrick White, and Payton Pritchard in this one, so you can check out all of those post-game press conferences as well as our full hour-and-a-half long Garden Report show. Thanks as always for watching. We'll have more coverage. Celtics travel to Brooklyn tomorrow. They face the Nets on Tuesday night. I'll be there, so we'll have more coverage on the ground from Brooklyn. And they finished this one with a 121-118 win, and they are finally 500 again. I never thought I was going to be excited to say that.